to Book One. What's all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy, our freedom dies in silence, none other than Mr. Dan Schaefer.
Hello. Thanks for having me on board.
Welcome, Mr. Dan. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
So I'm a semi-retired person. I was laid off when I was 63 years old. Haven't been able to find a job since then. So I decided I'm just going to do what my love follows. What I love, I should say. I did a lot of podcasting for a while. I even did that before I retired. But decided to, rather than just podcast about politics, I would just jump into it myself. So I've jumped in last year, ran as a candidate for the Missouri House of Representatives, District 97, ran as a Democrat, and didn't win, but I will be back this next time around. So I'm getting ready to run again next year. So before that, I was an engineer for many years, worked not only in hardware design, but also software design. Also worked on the road quite a bit, worked with salespeople and marketing people. I actually was a marketing manager for a while, which is crazy because I didn't have any training in marketing, no formal training there, but I did it anyways. Worked as a trainer. And during that process, I traveled all over the world, the Far East, the Middle East, I didn't get to Africa at all, but I got all throughout Europe and North America, obviously, and Asia, like I said. So it gave me a lot of good experience about what goes on in the world and how to talk to different people. One thing I find in all my travels, no matter where I go, no matter how far I go, people are people. And you can talk to anybody about just about anything. They always want to talk about their families, their children, their schools. I don't care if I'm sitting with someone in a cafe in Bangalore, India. That's what we're talking about. It's just a normal conversation, and people are just people, like I said.
People are people. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Dan Schaefer.
Thank you.
Yes, our audience love your energy today. And today, let's talk about the critical topic of fighting extremism in American heartland. Tell us,
Yeah.
when we talk about extremism in the heartland today, what specific ideologies are we confronting?
Well, I think we're confronting one major conflict in among Americans, and I think it's all been a manufactured conflict myself. Up until probably 50 or 60 years ago, we never really had that much of a problem between the different cultures in the United States. Now I know I'm skipping over a lot because obviously the United States had a huge problem, a huge shameful history actually of genocide to the Native Americans, the enslavement of African Americans. But right now, at this point, people are turning on each other. It's not. It's the racial element is still there, but now people are turning on each other from an idealistic perspective. And so I think one thing we need to realize is why this is happening. And there's a lot of books out there that say how it happens. Not too many saying why it's happening. But my firm belief is it's happening because well, as they say, we're not divided between left and right in this nation. We're divided between top and bottom. And that means people at the top of the economic ladder want to stay up there. The wealthy, very wealthy people, the very wealthy class, and then you have everybody else. And so, when you have this type of environment, the 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 upper class will manufacture lots of issues to divide people over. It could be religion, it could be racism, it could just simply be a different in idealism, and these divisions get amplified through the media, through social media, through television, traditional media, and it pits people against each other. And as long as we're fighting each other, we're turning a blind eye as to what's really going on because our pockets are being picked by the wealthy class, by the corporate class out there. So if you want to trace it all the way back, you can go all the way back to like 1972 when there was this thing that was called the Powell Memo. It was written by Lewis Powell, who became a Supreme Court justice in 1973. But shortly before he became a Supreme Court justice, he wrote a memo that outlined what's going on in our society. And there's a background to this also. In the 1970s, a lot of things were in turmoil, but one thing that was happening was that corporations were being devalued. Corporations, he felt anyways, um, were playing second fiddle in a sense. And he recommended and outlined some ways of battling that, of fighting that. Um, Primarily through promotion of pro-business type of philosophy in schools, colleges, and so on. And as the businesses started to gain more of their wealth and more influence, um, it became natural that there became a very large wealth gap in this nation. And in order to fight that gap and keep people from understanding that that gap really was taking place, they manufactured issues that separated us. So that's kind of like where we are right now. I know it's fairly long explanation, but there's a lot of books out there, like I say, that sort of describe what happened, and very few of them describe why it happened, but a lot of them describe how it happened.
Mr. Dan, how are national and international extremist narratives being adopted and activated within local heartland communities?
International and national and international extremism, you're saying?
Yes.
Um, That's a good question. I think that I think a lot of it is just the opposite from the books I've been reading recently. Uh, the United States, the extremism in the United States is actually exporting itself outside of the United States into different countries, and this can be seen by influences in many of the countries throughout Europe and to some degree Africa as well, where idealism, mainly based in a sort of a twisted Christian religion, is finding its way out into the real world. Now, some of it may be coming in, some of it may be Russian propaganda that's being exploited to perhaps take advantage of the divide in America to try to weaken us. But from what I've seen so far, it seems to be more going outward from the United States into different countries. Um, I didn't mention the UK either, but it's also being exported to the UK. And I'm not sure if that was really responsible for the motivation behind the Brexit move over the last several years, but it certainly does put fuel on that fire.
Mr. Dan, what are the primary economic, social, and cultural grievances that extremist groups are exploiting to recruit members of these communities?
The uh, the economic mechanisms they're using to exploit, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think it sort of builds upon what I said before. I never really, you know, put a lot of thought into that particular angle of it, but um, I mean, it's the wealth gap, right? And there's a tremendous wealth gap in this nation. It's worse than it's been since the Gilded Age, when the late 1890s, and that is driving a lot of the problems here. I'll give you an example. My son is now 31 years, or going to be 31 years old very soon, and he's working a normal job like I did when I was his age. But the difference is, when I was his age, I could afford to get a house. He can barely afford to get an apartment at this point. Now, granted, he's living in Southern California where things are a little more expensive, but if you take I calculated this out some time ago. If you take the average wage and compare it to the median house price out there, you would see that that the average person would have to make 2.5 times their annual salary to afford a house. That was true in 1980. Right now in 2025, that ratio is more like 5 or 6 to 1. So it's at least twice as difficult for young people starting out today to afford a house, to afford, what they call the classic American dream. And the government does not seem to be doing enough to stop it. Um, One of the things that happens right now is that the big financial markets like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they're going out and purchasing lots of properties, lots of home properties on site, and they have no intention of selling them. What they're doing with these purchased properties is they're renting them out to people. So we become a nation of renters. In some cases, these financial companies are actually building entire neighborhoods. None of the homes that they're building are going to be sold. They're all going to be rented out. So we're what happens with young people these days is, first of all, they can barely afford their own home, and secondly, the rent is so high that they don't have the ability to save up anything for a home. And thirdly, when they retire, like I'm doing right now, um, the idea is that you build up this nest egg so that by the time you retire, you pretty much own your home. You've paid it off, and now you have a big piece of equity sitting there where you can now sell off the house and move down to a smaller house or something and have a lot of money. The next generation does not have that option at this point, and that is another thing that's really driving a wedge in our society.
Mr. Dan, how are churches, mosques, and other faith institutions uniquely positioned to counter extremist narrative, and what are some of the most effective strategies they're employing?
Well, I think that just the opposite is happening in the Christian based religions. If you go back to Ann Nelson's book called Shadow Network, she very methodically lays out the case for many of the American churches, particularly in the rural areas, have been recruited to push a hardline extremist attitude. And so churches are getting in on the act now. And um, that's causing people to become even more extremist. Um, but you bring up a good point. How can religious organizations fight this trend? Well, I think first of all, they need to have a reckoning. Particularly the Christian religions need to have a reckoning as to what's really taking place. And secondly, they need to get back to the basic tenets of Christianity. Now, I don't really consider myself a Christian, but I've done a little bit of reading in the Bible, and I'm pretty familiar with some of the concepts, particularly Matthew 25:35, which everybody pretty much knows that verse at this point, but it basically says, uh, it was basically Jesus saying, "What you've done for the least of me, or what you've done for the least of my brothers, you've done for me." And that's spoken in reference to bringing refugees into your house, welcoming someone who's clothing the naked, sheltering the people without homes, feeding the hungry, etc. Well, Christianity has gotten away from that. Now, I can't speak too much about Islam or Judaism or other major religions out there, but I do know that many of these religions that are emanated out of the Middle East um, actually have a large compassionate component to them, and we've gotten out of touch of that because I think greed, power has infiltrated it, and it has I think to a large degree it has denigrated religion and made many people cynical about it. I see a lot more moral behavior coming out of people who are proclaimed atheists or proclaimed non-religious. I see a lot more compassion coming from those people, and this is maybe it's not to be expected. It's not so much saying that it's a surprise that atheists are moral and good people. It's more of a surprise to say that why aren't religions, particularly the Christian-based religions, why aren't they at least as equally moral in their behavior? And So I don't know. As far as it comes to the churches, I'm really at a loss to figure out how to penetrate that particular institution. Some of them get it right. There's no question about it. But a lot of them, especially the televangelist type churches, um, they they worship the almighty dollar, and they worship entrepreneurialism, and they worship wealth and accumulation and abundance, and to the detriment of everyone else. So I'm kind of cynical, as you might be able to tell, cynical about these particular offshoots of Christianity. But they push sanctimony on Sundays, and then every other day of the week they are just greedy, power hungry people.
Greedy, and for sure. And how can local law enforcement effectively monitor and confront domestic extremism while maintaining community trust and avoiding the perception of overreach?
Yeah, that's a real loaded question there. If you had asked me this question 20 years ago, I'd say it's pretty trivial because there's a lot of agencies within our government that specialize in what we would call domestic terrorism. And they have been keeping track of many of these domestic terrorist cells. I mean, classically, the Ku Klux Klan, several other offshoots, the American Nazi Party, etc. Um, they have pretty much relinquished that responsibility at this point. And we saw the other day this tragedy where Charlie Kirk was assassinated by an assassin's bullet in Utah. And what you see now is, I think, a very perverse response from a lot of people, knowing what type of person Charlie Kirk was. And I'm, don't speak ill of the dead sort of thing, but while he was alive, he was not what I would consider a model citizen. He promoted a lot of racism, uh, a lot of subjugation of women, and patriarchy and so on. And now you see that politicians are talking about having a state burial for him or something like that. This is just the opposite of what we need, but this is where we are in America right now, where it's gee, 50 years ago, I never would have imagined a nation that is so consumed by racism as we are right now. Um, but that's not the, you might think I'm throwing dirt on the United States. It is a minority of people that are doing this, but they've been able to capture the levers of control in this country. And so most people that I run into, um, Democrats, Republicans alike, most of them are good people. And in my campaign here, I'm campaigning for the Missouri House of Representatives. I know a lot of Republicans here, and in fact, my opponents, I have been out to lunch with them and spent a lot of time with them. Decent people, right? We have different perspectives, but decent people. So I think that the part of the minority that's really taken this country down is a fairly small minority of people, but they're very vocal and they're very powerful.
Powerful indeed. So, Mr. Dan, as a politician, podcaster, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my life is kind of in flux right now. I got the phone call about 2.5 years ago. I was working, and suddenly the phone call comes in, and you're out of a job. So things had to change quite a bit there. But I do see myself as being an asset to society, to help people, to help increase representation of people, to fight for freedom. We mentioned before, freedom dies in silence. I'm not a silent person. I'm going to make noise when I see a threat to our freedom. I see a threat to our way of life. I'm going to speak up for it. Now, whether that means running for the Missouri House of Representatives, or maybe it just means going back to doing podcasting. I don't see myself going silently into the night. 66 now, and my health is still pretty good. So as long as I can get up there and go to the gym every other day and do my running, etc. I'm gonna, as long as I have my health, I'm gonna be working on this.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Dan. I'm looking forward for more success.
Well, thank you.
And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh, don't be like me. I mean, seriously, my wife asked me the other day. She says, "Do you have any regrets?" And I says, "Well, I have enough regrets to fill an Encyclopedia Britannica." And she says, "Like what?" And I says, "Oh, where do I begin?" Um, I think that we shouldn't really model ourselves. We should strive to be authentic as we can. There might be attributes of other people that we find admirable, and we should try to work them into our personality. I'm very impressionable in that case. I meet a lot of people that I admire, and they give me a lot of good ideas, but it becomes my own. I bring it into myself. So I would say to anybody out there that is thinking about maybe trying to do good things for society. Um, yeah, the only thing I could say, the only thing you can model yourself after me in one way is just to jump in and do it. Nobody gave me an instruction manual and said, "Here's how you run for political office" or something. I just literally just made a phone call, and the guy, I was it's kind of a long story there, but basically in the span of just a few minutes, I realized, hey, maybe I could run, and then talked it over with my wife for a few days, and then afterwards came back and said, "Okay, let's do it." And now, the question is, what do we do? And the answer is, I don't know. Just get out there and do stuff. Talk to people and so on. Um, but I would say, yeah, don't hesitate. If there's something you want to do, um, obviously you got to take care of business, right? You got to take care of your family, you got to take care of your home and whatever your responsibilities are. But in those spare hours that you get every day, or maybe once a week, you get a few spare hours. Where does your mind go? What do you think about? What are the types of visions that you find comfort in? And just pursue them. And it could be anything from writing video games to running for political office, or maybe being a musician or something like that. Pick up a pair of drumsticks and go for it. That it's you learn as you go, and that's the way life is. It's just there's no user manual for life. You just have to pick it up and go. I'm sure you, Dana, when you did podcasting, you're probably saying, "What is a podcast? How do I do this?" And the answer is very simple. You just do it. It's just you just do it. It's just there's you learn from other people as you go along, and you learn more techniques and such. So just do it and have fun with it.
Yes, people, life is too short and just do it. Stop procrastinating. If you have the talents, please share to the world, just like Mr. Dan and I. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Well, I've read a lot of books in the past, and I don't know, which one I would recommend, but I did mention Ann Nelson. Shadow Network is the name of that book. Jason Stanley has written a couple of good books. One that I read was How Fascism Works, which kind of teaches you about what's going on in society as they drift toward authoritarianism. There's a lot of books like that that can kind of get you depressed. So pick up some books you like reading too. I'm personally a fan of Stephen King. I like picking up his books. Not all of them. Some of them are just way too out there for me. But pick up something that you enjoy reading and just read for the fun of it. But yeah, I mean, I can. I've read fiction and nonfiction book. I've read very highly technical books before. But the books I think I enjoy the most are the ones that have good stories in them, that just tell a good story that you enjoy reading, and dive into it and live with the characters for a while, and you'll find yourself, if you're really into the book, when you get toward the end of the book, you want to put it down because you don't want it to end, right? You want that story to continue reverberating in your mind. You don't want to read the last few pages, but eventually you do, and then you pick up another book. So um, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the two big books I had were Ann Nelson and Jason Stanley. But yeah, if you go to your online bookstore, whether it's Amazon or whatever, look up those books, and then look up books that are like them, and just you know poke around and start reading them.
Yes. Just do it. Just
Just
read
do
it,
it.
people.
Hey, we ought to make a commercial about that. Just do it.
Yes, just do it. Okay, Mr. Dan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, law 101, and mental health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Dan, amidst of these challenges, what are the most promising and hopeful stories of communities in the heartland that has successfully pushed back against extremisms and healed divisions?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. What I would recommend is yeah, maybe not even reading a book. Just put your book down and go to your local coffee shop or something and strike up a conversation with somebody. Uh, get out there in the real world. Get off social media for a while. I mean, we all spend time on social media, but get off of it and talk to people. But as far as bringing people together, um, I haven't ever read any books like that. That's a really good question though, because I need to start looking for books like that because how do you bring people together and how do you heal our nation? Um, there is an organization called Braver Angels, which I would like to highlight. It's called Braver Angels, and that's a group of people that get together, random people get together, and they meet at a restaurant or a bar or whatever. And their whole idea is to spend some time talking over the issues. You can have some people on the right side of the political spectrum, some on the left side, and you make a commitment, no fights. We're just going to talk. We're going to shake hands. We're going to drink beer, and we're going to have a good time. And boy, oh boy, I think that'll heal you faster than any book can because that means you're contacting real people, and you're getting to know real people out there, and you find out the world isn't such a scary place once you get to know quite a few people, especially the people in your community. The world isn't so scary then.
Yes, definitely. Mr. Dan Schaefer, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote?
Right. Well, thank you. Appreciate being here.
Yes, indeed. So can you please invite our listeners to listen to your podcast?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not running the podcast anymore. It was called Democracy on the Move. I haven't recorded it in more than a year now. There was another podcast I had before that, which was a podcast for a political party called the Alliance Party. I did probably about 200 podcasts between the two of them, interviewed lots and lots of people. And but if you want to catch up on what I'm doing, you can go to dan4mo.com. That's DAN, the number 4, MO. That's the abbreviation for Missouri. dan4mo.com, and check out the website, and you'll see some of the writings that I've been doing, as well as some of the people I admire, and that's about, I guess that's the plug for me for this point.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dan Schaefer because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.